Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Most people do pranks for April Fool's Day, but I'd rather look at a particular type of deity. Today, we'll look at Anansi, one of the many trickster spirits which plague mythology. Every culture has developed a mischievous spirit which plagues people, be it Loki among the Norse, Hermes in Greek, or Coyote in Native American mythology. Anansi comes from Akan and Ashanti mythology, of Ghana and throughout Western Africa. You will often find other names with different regions and tellings. He is described as a mixture of man and spider, sometimes a spider body with a human face, others an 8-legged human, though he is well mentioned being a shapeshifter, often taking different forms to manipulate others. He has a wife called Okonoriya, or Aso, among other names, and many sons, and a daughter. He is as much an antagonist as a protagonist, and appears in many stories. Depending on the story, some describe him as a god, or a spirit, and others of a less divine source. Supposedly, Anansi was born human, but had a mischievous streak even then. He saw the king's prized ram. Playfully, he sought to cause a little trouble, and threw a rock at the ram, killing it. Now he was scared and hid under a tree. A nut fell from the tree and hit him in the head, spawning an idea. He dragged the ram over to the tree and hung it up. Then he found a nearby spider, who he convinced to go to the tree where he would find plenty of food, and it did. Anansi then went to the king and claimed that the spider had killed the ram. He was furious, and then commanded his men to go get the spider. Anansi then went running, shouting that the spider had killed the ram. While the king awaited his men to bring the spider in, he stopped for lunch, but it was the queen who spoke up. She asked how a spider could kill a ram and hoist it up into a tree. The king came to realize the truth. He sent a messenger to bring Anansi, claiming that he was to be rewarded. And he came willingly, but the king exposed Anansi's actions. In anger, he struck Anansi, splitting him apart and making him a spider. Another common one involves the sky god Niam, who hoarded the stories of the world. Anansi makes a bet, offering up his own mother, Nisia. Anansi is tasked to capture the fairy Moratia, the leopard Osiabo, the python Onini, and lastly the hornet Moboro. It is through cunning tricks Anansi fulfills these tasks. He played the python's arrogance, claiming that he was too small, no bigger than a palm frond. When the python went to show his size, Anansi tied him up with the palm frond. For the hornet, he created a false rain, and when the hornet fled to safety, it mistook Anansi's gore for safety. The leopard fell into the classic pit trap, and then it was struck on the head. But the fairy was more difficult. He made a mash of yams, and a small doll shaped like a fairy, coated in honey and sap, and sat it out. When the fairy was lured in by the smell of yams, it asked to share the food, but the doll couldn't reply, and that was rude to the fairy, who slapped the doll, only to find itself caught. With all ensnared, Anansi returned to the sky god and received the stories, from then called the spider stories. Another of his tales goes like this. Anansi was greedy for wisdom, and went about collecting all the wisdom in the world in a giant gourd. He stuffed it full, and feared losing it. So what does anyone do with a valuable treasure that they are hoarding. Yep, he sought to hide it up in the branches of the highest tree. Now, the gourd he kept the wisdom in was much too big, bigger than him. He sought to carry the gourd up the tree by carrying it in front of him. But it got tangled in his many legs, and he falls down, again and again. Finally, his son asks him why he doesn't place the gourd on his back. He shakes his head as he climbs up the tree. Looking to his son, he says, "Oh, look at the wisdom I missed." Smiling, he throws the gourd out over the world, causing the contents to fall across the world. Anansi was also responsible for spreading diseases throughout the world. Again, Anansi was dealing with the sky god. Our spider went and asked Niam for a sheep. In exchange, Anansi was to bring the sky god a woman. Now, Anansi took the sheep, but never planned on fulfilling his end of the bargain. He found a village of only women, where he cooked the sheep up for them, and in time he took them as his wives. Also is not among them. She comes from yet another story. In time, a hunter visited the village. But this was a servant of Niam, who reported what he had found. So a divine messenger was sent, while Anansi was out of the village, and took all of the women except for one. She was ill and deformed. The other wives were taken to Niam's harem. When Anansi returned, he was distraught. He saw his remaining ill wife. She asked him to wash her and place the water in a gourd. When she was washed clean of all illness, she was revealed to be gorgeous, more beautiful than any other woman, even amongst his other former wives. The sky god's messenger was out scouting and saw the woman and repeated back. Once more, the messenger was sent to take the woman away, leaving Anansi alone, but not beaten. He called upon his son. They made a pair of drums, but Anansi's was made using the gourd, filled with water from bathing his ill wife. They beat the drums and sang. In time, Niam heard the sounds and invited Anansi. He played before his former wives, when Niam stood up to dance too. Anansi ripped apart his drum to expose the disease-laden water, which he threw over everyone. In doing so, diseases spread throughout the world. The last story I want to go over is this. Anansi's village was suffering from a famine and drought. He left to find food and water for the village. In his travels, he found a group of spirits in human form. They had removed their skulls and were using them to pull water from the stream. Seeing Anansi, they asked him to help, in exchange for some of their food and water, and he agreed. As they worked, the spirits sang, and Anansi sang with them. When their work was done, they returned their skulls, but warned Anansi to never sing the song. He returns to his village with food and water to support them through the hard times. Well, if you know even the most basic of stories, he hears the spirits singing later on, and sings along. When he does, his skull falls out, but he catches it. He then sets out to find the spirits who put it back, but warn him that they won't help him again. Sometime later, he hears the spirits singing, and lets the tune slip out. Once more, his skull falls out, but before it lands on the ground, he catches it with his butt, where it gets stuck. This leaves Anansi with a small head and a big butt, thus the look of a spider. These are just a couple of his stories. In total, he appears in somewhere around 1,000 stories. Oh, there are so many. But they show Anansi's true nature. He isn't someone of power, but cunning, charisma, and intelligence. Those are what he uses to ensnare and trick people. All from gods, mortals, and spirits. though he isn't what I would call evil. Regardless, he isn't to be trusted. He is always a few steps ahead of you. It is very rare that anyone gets a surprise on him. Getting him in a trap takes planning, preparations, and luck. These stories do show a few of the times that people have gotten the best of him. With the story of the king, with the aid of his wife asserting the truth of Anansi's lies, shows him in his youth, and where he learned the importance of intelligence. But he was always mischievous, and having a reputation probably helped expose his actions. The story about his skull falling out shows his difficulty of keeping promises, and how simple things can work against him. Also, how loyal he is to his village, and that is a weakness. With the story about his gourd and hoarding wisdom shows his greed, but willingness to learn when he finds out how much he has missed. If he missed a bit of wisdom held by his own son, there was surely so much more that he missed. Also, he understands that sharing the wisdom makes for a far more interesting world. Lastly, we have the tale of his wives being taken. He is a spiteful person. Whether a year or a decade, he will get his revenge, so be careful. If you are forced into a fight with Anansi, it will be rough. He is smart. I would assume smarter than you or me. This is someone playing 4D chess, while you are lucky to even know that there is a game going on. You can't go into the fight carelessly. Physically, he is nothing special. Not that strong or fast. Yes, he is a mixture of man and spider, but as a shapeshifter, he can take you on in any form he chooses. But he won't. He'll have layer upon layer of tricks for you. He has been documented creating webs as a spider. But his other physical traits are on par with humans usually. I would have a sword to cut his webs, and you'll need to watch out for them. Too easy to get immobilized with them. I would choose armor which you can ditch quickly to escape his webs. He has been tricked before, so you could as well. Don't go into this without a plan. Know what you are doing beforehand. Honestly, this is a fight best to avoid. He is clever and is able to come up with a strategy quickly. Nothing will be as it seems with him. Magic is going to be useful here, particularly spells to track him and dispel illusions. Fire spells will burn away his webs. Be ready for him to drag out this fight. Get you tired. Mind you, that is an issue you could exploit as well. Do everything you can to avoid this one. It'll be a lot of trouble. Honestly, I'd love to see how a fight would go between Anansi, Loki, Hermes, and Coyote. It would be complete chaos to be sure. Though Anansi may be the least evil of the group. So, if Anansi approached you, would you work with him? That will be a choice. There is a good chance that he will do something to make sure things end well for him. Don't make a bet. He's too smart to fall for that, and he'll do anything he can to stack the deck for him. Yet he has been shown to be loyal, even going so far as to remove his skull to get resources for his village. So if you become his friend, he would go to great lengths to protect you. In that way, he is an invaluable ally. Except there is a good chance that being his friend will get you in trouble. Just look at what happened with his wives. Yeah, even being his friend is going to be a problem. He goes and pisses off the wrong person, and they come down with vengeance, and you'll get caught in it. Just avoid him. Not as an enemy, nor as a friend. That is the best advice I can offer. Anansi is a complicated character. One with a whole list of stories. ranging from small mistakes with funny outcomes to malicious escapades, putting him into conflict with gods, sowing chaos and misfortune, to blessing the world. He has done much, both good and bad. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Sorry that there wasn't some prank at the end of this video for April Fool's Day, but a trickster deity sounded more fun. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'll see you on the roads.